Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars, welcome to another PlayStation review. Today's review is for ELEX 2 from Piranha Bytes. Now ELEX 2 was released, feels like a couple of months ago now, on the PlayStation, and it's a game while I was aware of because I did play the first ELEX game, however I never completed it. I think I got between 10 and 15 hours into the game. And even though I wasn't massively disliking the game or anything, I did find it a little bit of a frustrating game to play. It didn't really massively win me over, and I suspect other games around that time that came out I was more invested in, so I just kind of didn't finish it. So while I didn't want to get this when it was initially released, it is just been made available in a very recent sale on the PlayStation Store. So I decided to take a punt on this one because I love open world RPGs, generally speaking. And I'd heard some pretty decent feedback on this game. I think some of the reviews have been a bit middling for this game, I think it's fair to say. Now, certainly from memory, when I remember playing the first ELEX game, it was pretty janky and a little bit awkward to play. And that is, I suppose, very similar to ELEX 2 in that way. While I do think the game, they have made improvements here, I think. The game, you could never really certainly describe it as like a AAA top quality game. It certainly isn't that, and I don't think it pretends to be that either. Piranha Bytes put out very, very specific types of games, really. They're not what you would call highly polished, but they certainly can be quite engrossing to play. And I think that is, there are other things in this game that sell it rather than the polish and things like that we get with this game. Now, in regards to how the game looks, it's a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest. I do think at times the game looks quite beautiful. Some of the environments look really, really interesting. There's lots of different biomes for you to visit. You know, you've got lush green forests and trees and grassy areas, and then you've got really cold and icy, snowy areas, and you've got the day and night cycle, all that kind of stuff. And I do think the world has been nicely created and looks overall quite nice. Yes, when you're playing the game, some of the draw distances are pretty poor and the popping here and there does let it down a bit. But generally speaking, I do think that the environments look good. The character models are another matter, however. I do think some of them look passable, but some of them just look like they're from an early PS4 game, and that's being fairly generous. But again, some of them look pretty decent, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's almost like they had, I don't know, 5 people working on the character models, and 3 people cared about what they were doing, and 2 people didn't. I'm sure that's an exaggeration, but that's how it feels. It feels like not as much effort was put into certain aspects of how the game looks. But it's certainly not too bad. In regards to the sound, it's fully voice acted, and I do think it's of a good standard, the voice acting here. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of voice acting, there's a lot of dialogue being spoken by a lot of characters, and you will find yourself skipping through, unnecessary dialogue here and there. That's nothing to do with the quality of the voice acting. It's just, sometimes you just want to get on with it. And you get some pretty atmospheric music playing as well. Now, in regards to gameplay for this game, well, the best way to describe it is it's like an old school RPG, and you play a character called Jax. It's you're living on this planet, and from my understanding from the first game, he did his job, but he tried to warn everybody that there was like an alien invasion imminent on its way. Nobody listened. Well, this game starts with that alien invasion, and he's got to then travel around the world and try and bring the factions together once again to fight back against this new threat. So it's kind of set on this world, and it's like a post-apocalyptic type world. So it's a cross between like a sci-fi and like a medieval game, which is Piranha Bytes' speciality, really. You've got your usual RPG mechanics. You've got your attributes, you can upgrade your strength, your dexterity, your intelligence, your cunning, so on and so forth. You've got abilities. Now you do your abilities by kind of learning off certain NPCs. So if you want to improve your melee effectiveness with your melee weapons, or your defense, or lock picking or hacking, there's a whole array of abilities for you to pick up. First of all, you need a skill point, and you get them from leveling up, and then you need to find an NPC that will teach you certain skills to increase these abilities. There are workbenches scattered all over the world, and these workbenches will help you improve your gear, like your ranged weapons, your jetpack, which is very useful in this game. You can upgrade your jetpack, so you can essentially Iron Man your way around the map to some degree. Early on in the game, it's pretty useless, the jetpack, but once you start upgrading it, it becomes a little bit more fun to navigate your way around the world. It reminded me a little bit of Dragon Age Inquisition as well, because you'll get to a point in this game, there's a place called the Bastion, which is like your base of operations, and the idea is you've got to kind of bring people to the Bastion that will agree to help you to fight back against this alien invasion. So you'll bring back certain characters with their skills, companions, you'll find companions along the way, and they will all be based at the Bastion, and it can be upgraded there. You've got your living quarters that can be upgraded. You've got all that kind of stuff. So you've got like this base of operations, which reminded me a little bit of Dragon Age Inquisition, but you don't kind of you can't improve like the Bastion's castle area, all that kind of stuff. Not really, anyway. The combat, I mean, I'd seen reviews where the combat wasn't particularly praised. I think that's a fair assessment, and I could understand why. The combat here is pretty old-fashioned and not particularly good. I mean, it's a case of swinging your weapon with a light attack, and you've got a stronger attack as well. And you've got a dodge and a roll, and if you've got a shield, you can parry an attack. If you've got your jetpack upgraded, you can kind of maneuver in the air and use your ranged attacks like your shotguns or your bow and arrows, all that kind of stuff. It's okay, the combat, but is it enjoyable? I'm not sure that is the case. Now, early on in the game can be certainly quite challenging. That's something I remember from the first ELEX game. I did find it a bit of a challenge to progress through the game because the combat was just so challenging. Especially, it was quite hard to do, and there was enemies all over the map on that game and this game that are more powerful than you. So early on in the game, you could potentially die a lot here. I think the thing is early on in the game, I would suggest is avoiding as many enemies as you can until you start leveling yourself up a bit. You start getting a few more different weapons and upgrading yourself. And then it does become, between 10 and 15 hours into the game, you get to the point where you can kind of one-hit enemies. But there will still be pretty much every aspect of the story in this game. There'll be enemies more powerful than you. So you've got to kind of bear that in mind. Like, as I mentioned, you do pick up companions along the way that can help you in combat. My assessment of most of the companions is they're next to useless for the most part. But they all do have their like side missions. If they don't like some of the directions you're taking in regards to the choices that you're making, they could potentially get very, very unhappy with you and potentially leave you, all that kind of stuff. And the game is actually full of what feels like meaningful choices. For example, what faction to choose. There are a number of factions in the game. I think it's 5. You've got the Albs, the Morcons, the Outlaws, the Berserkers, and the Clerics. And you've got to kind of go and, cozy up to each of these factions, do lots of missions for them, and get to the point where they will offer you a position in their faction. And you can choose whether you're going to join them, but you can only join one. So it's a significant decision. And there are other decisions in the game as well that do feel quite significant, which is always a really, really good thing, I think, for an RPG. Another thing I really like about this game, which you don't always see in RPGs, is NPCs will react to you realistically. If you go in someone's home they will confront you. They will basically get very, very annoyed with you if you don't get out of their home. If you try and talk to a specific character in the game and they're already talking to somebody else, they'll basically tell you to not be so rude and, can't you see I'm talking to someone kind of thing. So I do like how the NPCs react to this game. I think it's a pretty nice touch that they've added here to this game. And there's some really offbeat, weird stuff in this game. You know Billy Idol? Yes, Billy Idol, that singer from the 80s. He's in this game. You get to hear at one point in this game, there's a mission where there's Billy Idol's doing a concert somewhere in the world. And you start thinking in your mind, do they mean Billy Idol? And then you'll get to it, and do you know what? It is Billy Idol, and he sings a concert, sings a song, and it's a bit. At one point, one way to look at it is it's really awesome, and another way to look at it is just really random and a little bit weird, and that quite nicely sums this game up. It's a little bit random, a little bit weird, but if you do like old school RPGs. That does have some fairly creative missions and side missions, even though the UI and how you choose the missions can be massively confusing. I'm not massively keen on how they kind of present the missions and store them in your inventory and things like that. Yes, it's not the most polished RPG you'll ever play, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a veteran of RPGs. I play a lot of them, and I'm finding this really, really enjoyable, and I've really enjoyed my time playing it. So if you're looking for a fairly cheap, or certainly in a sale, decent RPG, you could do far worse than this one. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It has certainly surprised me, and it's definitely an improvement on the first game, in my opinion. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you found this review useful.